Welcome back to Design Notes, a show about creative work and what it teaches us. I'm your host, Liam. Each episode, I talk with people from unique creative fields to discover what inspires and unites us in our practice. I'm so excited to be coming back to Design Notes with an episode from this special series of 3 interviews recorded remotely with the winners of the 2020 Material Design Awards, where we explore exactly what goes into creating an award-winning app with material.
We've essentially got 2 versions of our app. We have an app that has motion and we have a static version of the app. And the static version must feel like there is an interaction without animation. And the reason why that is because we aim to design inclusively, and therefore we need to benefit the minority in everything that we do.
That was Jennifer Stott, head of design at Epsy, an app whose aim is to better the lives of those living with epilepsy. Epsy won the Material Design Award for motion design, using motion meaningfully with care and restraint in their approach to guiding users through critical tasks. In our interview, we discussed the importance of building for everyone and of using motion to create a safe environment for users. Let's get started. All right, Jennifer, Marco, welcome to Design Notes.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thanks for having us.
You both work on a product called Epsy. So to start off with, I want to get a little bit of information about what Epsy is and also the history of the product and its design approach.
So Epsy is really designed as a platform to transform the way people track epilepsy and go through their epilepsy journey, right? So believe it or not, there is still a very analog experience people go through in tracking their epilepsy and sharing that information with physicians. And with Epsy, we're providing a platform to transform that and allow patients or their family carers to much more easily keep track of what's happening around patients that are experiencing epilepsy. And on the other side, then easily communicate that information with doctors, facilitating the communication between patients and doctors that way. So we think this is going to help a lot in really advancing people through their epilepsy journey faster so that they can get to their optimal therapy much faster than they are now.
More on the emotive side, we are here to make each day with epilepsy brighter than the last. So we really aim to bring a lot of optimism and delight to users as well. We want to empower users to really understand their condition better and to track progress in, as I said, a more delightful way to accelerate the pathway towards optimal treatment.
It strikes me looking at Epsy that the design is extremely intentional and very thoughtful. So I kind of want to jump right into that and talk to you about some of the main characteristics of the app that are built especially for Epsy users.
It's massively a combination of function and emotion. So it's an app for humans, so it should feel like it is human. And on the science side, it needs to be responsive in that way. So every action should have a reaction. Of course, it needs to be tangible. It should complement the expectation of the human who is using it. And then on the other side, the emotional side, it should convey and evoke emotion. And that's all about the storytelling and the magic that's behind it. A large part of it is what we can achieve with motion, actually. And it's that polish that makes it feel human-like. It's very important for us to consider how we make users feel, because they are with us multiple times a day. We can't be obstructive or annoying in any way. We need to be optimistic and encouraging and joyful.
Yeah. And in creating a product in digital health, it's even more important than ever to kind of convey that perfect balance in the experience that the user has and the positiveness of the experience. What we've been trying to strive for is really combine the technology that we have under the hood with this layer of design in a way that, as much as technology is really powering all of these, we make the technology disappear away out of the experience, right? And so that the user really can focus on, feeling empowered from finally being able to track their seizures, track the way they're living through their epilepsy in a way that they haven't been able to do before.
I think that's a really interesting point because you're facilitating this experience where the app functions as a tool to do this very important work of keeping track of things. But at the same time, it's something that does require a lot of engagement from the user. Like they need to be present in the app a lot. So how do you negotiate that balance?
you know, the experience of these patients is very often an experience of they have been told for some time, a very long time, that they should be doing certain things, they should be complying to certain prescriptions coming from their doctors, but it's just too hard, right? And that difficulty, that it adds up to all the other problems that come with the medical condition itself, right? And so there is this interesting kind of phenomenon that the moment you actually provide them with this tool, that it's easy enough, appealing enough, interesting enough to them, that they kind of, it makes them do it. Then they are finally doing this thing that they have known for years that they were supposed to do, and making them feel even, better, because it's unlocking something that they have been wanting to do for a long time. We end up having kind of strong emotional response from our users for finally empowering them with achieving this.
I just want to add to that as well. I think it's a feeling of progression and positive progress that we try to instill from the very beginning. So it's with every log and with every insight gained, the user feels like they're moving forward in their journey. And there's a few other ways that we bring that in. That's to do with the anatomy of the app, the way that we build that, communicating a clear hierarchy, and focusing on moments and insights, and really making them feel like they are progressing along their journey and in our app as well.
And I think clearly a big part of that, as you mentioned earlier, is motion. And Epsy won the Material Design Award for motion design this year. So I do want to spend a lot of time talking about your approach to that, because it's another aspect of the app that's like clearly very intentional and also very comprehensive. The motion is seen everywhere in the app, but I can imagine that particularly for an app that does what Epsy does, for folks who are living with epilepsy, that motion design can be an extremely important thing to get right. So I want to talk a little bit about how you've done that.
Exactly. So we need to make sure that we are intentional and that it needs to feel effortless as well. So there's a few parts to it. One of it is that we really need to consider a person's state when they are interacting with Epsy. So that could be potentially varying cognitive abilities. That is in the way that some people with epilepsy suffer from memory problems. That could be because of seizures that have caused damage to the brain, but also because medication side effects often cause memory problems. But more than ever, it's really important to anchor and to focus a user at all points. We really try to maintain the context, whether that's in an overview or if it's a zoom in onto detail. And on the other side, the emotional part, maybe somebody might have just arrived to our app because they've just had a seizure, right? So they need to log it. So therefore, they could be far more vulnerable and need a much safer environment than normal. So every single step needs to feel effortless. And actually, that is probably best practice for any app, right? But we really take it upon ourselves to make sure that we try to achieve that in everything that we do.
The way we've been approaching the construction of the product wasn't like a case where we've been thinking on some aspect of technologies and then kind of adding a layer of paint on top with the design. The way we've been combining the technology aspect with the design aspects, usability aspects, have all come together at one, and and they've been kind of been developed simultaneously. And so the way material design has supported us in doing that is really intentionally creating an infrastructure for us to think through those interaction and how they help us guide the user in going through that level of complexity of how to use the app and achieve all those things, but also ultimately having a very effortless, simple, lean experience.
So for listeners who might not have seen or used Epsy yet, would it be possible to describe like a couple of specific moments where motion design is really coming in to guide the user in a very, as you said, like safe, guided way?
Sure. I can give a few examples. So one of them is, I guess, kind of a good example of our responsive and emotion part of it, where if you come in to log a seizure or a side effect or anything, the feedback that you get on the logging button is rather quite special. It can only be described as a happy sprinkle of fun when you tap it. So you get that immediate feedback, but on the one side being informative, but really keeping that moment magical, because people might come to your app, of course, to log something that they feel the opposite about, really. If they're logging a seizure or a side effect, they're not thinking about fun. They're not thinking about that optimistic moment. So it's up to us to make sure that we're doing that for them. Another place we do it is in our bottom navigation. So it acts as an anchor to inform the user where they are in the app. Again, provides really nice feedback, but it's quite delightful and intuitive when you use it. Another part is the way that we've built our app. It's, again, just based on the material design layers. So we focus on this anatomy of layers. So we've got these expressive and intentional layers that all work together. We've got a bottom layer, that's our persistent back layer, that provides contextual info and also acts as our secondary navigation. And then we have our front layer, which is our main layer. And then we've added this additional full screen layer, which allows you to zoom into those detailed experiences that allow a user to log a medication or a seizure. And there we really focus on this forward navigation of sequence, again, just being progressive and focusing on that optimistic forward movement in their condition.
Really a lot of work into quite a complex architecture that materials help us make, really aimed at actually making the experience of the user very, very simple. The architecture, the complexity is under the hood, and the experience of the user is actually ultimately very simple.
I want to get into some of the details of both designing and implementing this, because given that there's such a comprehensive approach that's thinking about so many factors in the motion design, I can imagine that it took a long time to design and iterate on and get right. So I'd like to hear about that process.
I just want to jump in to really compliment our excellent designers and engineers. I would say that they consider interactions as part of the concept and the execution from the very beginning. So I'd say that it's holistically thought of for the most part from the very beginning. Of course, it's always tough to add that polish when you are stacked up against the burning product features that might seem a lot more convincing when you look at them against the backlog. So what we ended up doing quite recently is we had built up all these motion ideas that we were really itching to execute. And we decided to set aside a 2-week period where we focused on 1 week of design and 1 week of development, where we just added in all those extra bits of polish. That was quite unique, but just we do that every once in a while just to make sure that we don't forget that polish that's so important to deliver to the user, so that they do feel like they're getting the attention and innovation that they deserve.
Yeah, I don't think there is any magic secret, other than hard work in this, right? But 2 things that we try to do is, first of all, we are constantly talking to our users, whether it's on the patient side and on the physician side, and really develop the app and the experience, listening to what they're going through every day, right? And especially on the patient side, one of the ways epilepsy is peculiar, it's that, not 2 patients are alike. Everybody experiences epilepsy in his own or her own way. And so we try to cater for that diversity by listening a lot to our users. And the other side is, as I was saying earlier, we try to really combine the technology, the design, product aspects all together on the same level. And so we try to have everybody in the team working so that they are supporting their colleagues in elevating their performance to their best. So we are helping each other out that way. And that creates a very positive dynamic. And sometimes you kind of are enabling some technology aspect with design, sometimes it's the other way around, but it's a kind of an interesting positive cycle that you enact that way.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about motion design, it's often something that, as you said, Jen, like it can be really tempting to move on to more product features, and can be hard to get buy-in to set aside that time to design and implement those things. I wonder, for listeners who might be on a team where they really want to add this kind of thoughtfulness to their app, if you might have any tips for how to get that prioritized.
I really think it's important to think about it from the beginning. So it's not something that you just think about afterwards and add to afterwards. There is a school of thought that if motion can be removed from your app and nothing breaks, then it's superfluous, and it shouldn't be there at all in that case. We can come back to that later, because I do have some thoughts around that. But I really believe that you should be thinking about it from the very beginning, which is exactly what our engineers and our designers do. And it's fine if you know that you can add that afterwards. If there might be that extra 20%, that last 20% of polish, keep those front of mind and just advocate for them and explain, put together that case and present them to the wider team. Because of the way that we did it, we did a bit of an audit and we looked around and saw what we were inspired by. And by showing that to the wider team, everybody got really excited and, wanted that to be part of our app, wanted something similar, and wanted our users to experience that. So it's an easy case when you just put that together, and it's a lot easier for us to do that on the design side and then present it. That would be the way that I would suggest to do it.
I do want to get back into this discussion, though, about that statement that you made that if you can remove the motion from your app and nothing breaks, then the motion wasn't necessary to begin with. I think that's a super interesting idea, and I guess I just want to unpack that a little bit, especially because Epsy is a product where it's so clear that the motion is very integral to the product.
Sure. So maybe to explain a bit, when Marco describes about what's under the hood, we've essentially got two versions of our app. We have an app that has motion and we have a static version of the app. And the static version must feel like there is an interaction without animation. And the reason why that is because we aim to design inclusively, and therefore we need to benefit the minority in everything that we do. And therefore we would end up with a solution that benefits the majority. And where that comes from is we think about all the different types of people that will interact with our app. And some people have photosensitive epilepsy, which is when flashing lights and contrasting movement and animation could trigger a seizure. And this is a misconception that actually this affects most people with epilepsy, when in fact it's only 3% of the epilepsy population. But we can't ignore that 3%. Again, we need to design for every single person who's using our app. And if we went by the school of thought that removing motion results in a terrible experience in its static form, then we wouldn't be designing for those people or anyone else. So we kind of go against that in some ways. So we completely think out our motion experience and we think out our static experience to make sure that we're achieving similar goals.
I think that's a super, super important point, not even just for Epsy, but for any kind of app, because when you think about something being superfluous or you make a statement like removing motion makes a bad experience, I always want to add on for who, ? So I think that's a really great point. So I always like to wrap up by asking a little bit about the future. So I guess I would ask, what is coming next for Epsy's design in terms of motion, or in terms of how that motion supports the product's mission, or anything else?
Well, I think the short answer is that we feel like we're just getting started with what we're doing with the app and the way we are combining design and what we're achieving as a platform as well for doctors and for patients, right? And so I think as we look forward, we have many goals in terms of growth with our user base and features and value that we add to our users. And that implicitly means also additional layers of complexity. And with the way we're going to be looking at design and material design is really to kind of unpack that level of complexity and deliver it in a way that is easily digestible for our users, almost like help them kind of have I guess we have the design and the experience right if people can almost kind of create a muscle memory every day, and also at the same time be delighted every day with every single interaction they have.
It's about bringing that optimism and delight to our users who often call themselves epilepsy warriors. So they're fighting warriors, and we kind of want to turn that around and make that a lot more of a brighter experience.
Thank you both again for joining me.
Thanks, Liam.
It was a pleasure.
From Google Design and the Material Design team, I want to take a moment to just thank all of the Material Design Award winners for sharing with me the details, challenges, and considerations behind each of their apps. It's so cool to see the great things that people are building with Material, and to be able to bring that knowledge to our community. If you want to hear more about Material, follow @Material Design on Twitter, check out our new YouTube channel, and you can read more about the awards at material.io/blog. Make sure to check out the rest of the episodes in our special series with the Material Design Award winners, and stay tuned so you don't miss our next episode. You can subscribe to Design Notes on Google Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. For those who stuck around, like always, I want to say thanks for listening. And thanks for sticking with me through the hiatus, too. It goes without saying that things have been complicated over the past year, but making this show is something that I really love doing, and I'm so happy to have the space and the clarity to start recording again. Until next time.